thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to Supernova Podcast. In today's episode, we are talking about soulmate contracts, agreements, and the choices we made before we arrived here. What that might look like is current life trauma, how it's beneficial and what it truly is, and why we would have done that in the first place. Like, what would have possessed us to want to go through situations that are painful. Okay, so the first thing I will explain is trauma. In our culture today, trauma is perceived to be this horrible thing that we all avoid putting people through and experiencing, because it hinders our life development, it forces us to regress, and it is horrible to feel. When in actuality, trauma is needed in the life cycle of everything. What are you talking about? Well, if you think about a seed, what happens when you put it in the ground? Nothing, right? But then you add water to it and it causes the seed to burst out of its shell. Now the shell is comfortable, it's all it knows, and now it is bursting out and it's uncomfortable and it doesn't know where it's going. It doesn't know anything, but it just knows to keep striving and reaching for the sun. It's never seen the sun. It doesn't know if it's going to reach the sun, but it keeps going, and then it reaches the sun and it's hot. And now it has to learn how to transfer that energy into food to nourish itself to continue to grow. And now it has all of these responsibilities. It has leaves, it has fruit, and now it has to hope that bees will come and pollinate it and create its sustenance and continue to promote the lifestyle to go on. So how is that traumatic? Because it's new. It required an exterior stimuli. It required water, it required sun, it required bees, and all of those things required contact and touch that may not have felt that great for that plant. What does that look like in our lives? If you've had a traumatic experience as a child, or something happened that you did not like, but it made you think twice before you did something else, or it made you look at life a little bit differently, or it made you more empathetic to the pain of others, or made you more callous to other people's pain. It was something that produced in you a different result than what you would have experienced had it never happened. Now, most people say that trauma is bad, that anyone that induces or produces trauma within your life is toxic, and that they have to be removed. Essentially, that stops us and halts our ability to grow. So we no longer are acting in a manner that promotes growth. We have halted our growth. We have stopped our ability to process and go through situations that are meant to teach us. And we are now in situations that we stay in and we harp on because they were uncomfortable and did not feel good to us. Not to say that in certain situations it is not imperative that you get away from the toxic behavior. However, it is toxic behavior that is teaching you something, whether you like it or not. That is life. That is the experience that we have chose to go through and encounter by deciding to come to this dimension in this galaxy. We chose to come here because of the ultimate purpose for our highest self. I explained briefly that our highest self is the version of ourselves with all of the information from our previous lives, all of the information that lies within our Akashic records, which is basically our play-by-play. When you think of all of your actions being written down in the book of life, that is your Akashic records. Not just of the present experience and the past experience, but of your future experience based on the best outcome and the best choices made by guidance from your higher self, the universe, God, your ancestors, or whoever your spiritual advisor is. It could be Jesus, Muhammad, Allah, Buddha, whoever is guiding you in your life. So we all have those urgings and guidance, and if we choose to heed them, we usually have better outcomes. It's like going to a stop sign, and a subtle voice or a very loud voice tells us, go left, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go right, and then you get hit. So by listening to those subtle or loud urgings to listen, we can make decisions for our highest good. I don't know if I want to be that transparent, but a transparent moment would be making a decision to get involved romantically with someone that your highest self said not to get involved with, and taking weeks to remove their energy, remove the impact that they have had upon your life. So it's good to be obedient and to make sure you stay listening to the urgings of your guides and spiritual advisors in life. Okay, so trauma. Basically, it is a necessary tool needed to promote growth, which means that we have to go through traumatic situations for the purpose of growth. And I know, contrary to what other people feel or think, trauma is not the enemy, and it is not to be avoided at all costs. What trauma is, however, it is meant to be experienced and went through, because it's merely a momentary point on our very long journey to self-fulfillment and actualization. So, what does this have to do with our soulmates? What does this have to do with the contracts that we've made? Everything. Because it sets in us accountability of our life. We are actually in more control than we think. So we were up in the ether, right? Chilling. We were hanging out with our friends and our family and our just everyone, our God. Everybody was up there, Everybody is up there chilling. And we made the decision that we were going to learn a certain lesson in this lifetime. So this is where my understanding of coming back as different things comes from. I have a friend, we were on a trip. I'll be very brief about this, but she had an experience, and it was very alarming. But the alarm for me was just like, oh, okay, that makes sense. This is why you are the way you are in this lifetime, because you had a flashback to a time before, and it was very uncomfortable. So now in this lifetime, you're very much so in support of not being that way anymore. That's just a tidbit of the reason why we could make a decision. Like the last lifetime, maybe you were a man and you wanted to come back and experience as a woman to see if your chauvinistic beliefs were valid or if it was in fact false. But you wanted to experience that firsthand because it would have been more valuable for your own experience. Or you were mean to a dog in a past life. And Bhagavad Gita really talks about the karmic expression of karma and choosing. You don't really get a choice. So like, let's say you were really mean to animals and you come back as an animal to understand the life period as an animal. I believe we have more choice than that. I believe that it's for our highest good. So we agree to have these experiences and expressions versus we're thrown into this because of our choices made in that life. Some things are outside of our control until we learn and are aware of how much control we in fact do have. So an example of that would be you're up there, you're chilling, and you guys, everybody in your family decides that this lifetime we are going to fix and correct all of our mistakes. So now in this lifetime, everybody goes down and they have crazy experiences within the family. It could be incest, molestation, abuse, rape, just extreme hatred, extreme anger, extreme frustration. And everybody in the family is dealing with all this trauma, and everybody in the family is either getting stuck or moving forward and out of it. Some people are not. some people are making the choice or decision to stay in that space of trauma because they forgot or are unaware of the reason for this life experience at this specific point in time. So what that could look like is someone decides that they're going to self-medicate and use drugs and alcohol or anything to numb the experience versus accepting that the experience happened. This is what it taught me, and now I'm moving forward and out of it. There are not a lot of tools at hand or ways to understand or comprehend. Oftentimes, trauma is looked at with pity and not as a badge of honor or a badge of, you've got this. This was a teaching situation and you have made it through. It is looked at as shame, pitiful. It's not looked at with positivity or with encouragement or with true understanding for its effectiveness. So you have family members that decided alcohol was the way to go, and then they overdose and they start the life cycle all over, and then in their next lifetime they decide, no alcohol or drugs this time. I'm going through the life experience because now it's greater. You know, I've already done this before, and now I'm in here with some new stuff added on this time. But I will get to the point where I get through it. I get to the point where I'm good to go. So that family member gets through it. They're like, I've succeeded in this, and now I'm fulfilling my purpose. So the point of these soulmate contracts is to get to the desired result of fulfilling the purpose that you made before you got here. So for the family member that we're talking about that chose to abort the mission because they couldn't move through the trauma because of society's views of it, right? They come back and it's the same plan, it's the same goal, and they make the same contracts with the same people in their lifetime. They may look different this time, but they've still made the choice to do this for their higher self or highest good. So the overdose happens, it's accidental, or maybe it is on purpose, or maybe that was another agreement that they made for a lifetime so that next time they could get to their ultimate purpose. Everything works together. There's scriptures in many different religions that talk about everything works together for our highest good. For our highest good. Not for your current good in this life experience. Not for what makes sense right now because it doesn't feel good. But it's for our highest good, for our highest self. For our highest attainment, for our ultimate purpose. And that is uncomfortable. I need to reiterate this 1,000,000 times. It does not feel good. It does not feel like walking in a park with roses and daisies. And while I'm saying this in an unattached, unemotional way, there are many days where I cry because of how bad some of these contracts feel. However, at the other side of it, I can get it. I can see it and I can understand it. An example, I feel like examples are good, so I'm going to give them. I'm going to give them as much as I want to, and as much as I think they're needed, so you can really connect and see what I'm saying in a visual, applicable way. So, at the beginning of this year, my biological father passed away, and it was catastrophic for me emotionally. We were not in the best space 2 years prior, but we had remained in a really good space for a long time. So the last 2 years, it was not fantastic. And then a month and a half later, my grandmother died. And so I had all these feelings surrounding that. And then a month and a half after that, one of my best friends died. And so I was just like, this is a lot. This is a lot of pain and trauma. But before my father had even passed away, there were situations happening with my kids. There was just life and relationships ending. it was just like, I felt like I had already reached my max, and then life just started to really it really just started lifing, and I didn't like it, and it was painful and it was hurtful. But during that, I was seeking ways to heal. I was seeking ways to grieve. I was seeking ways to teach. I was seeking ways to grow, and it led me to going within like I had never went within. So had these situations not happened in the order, in the way that they did, I would not be in the space, place, or time that I'm in now within myself. Would I like to change how they happened, when they happened, and why they happened? Of course. Would I like to bring these people back so we could physically spend time with them? Of course. But what did that do for me? In my experience in this lifetime, what did that do for my higher self? Everything. So if anything would have changed, I would have not had the experience that I willingly accepted and had because of the trauma, essentially. We cannot protect ourselves from trauma happening. We can only choose what we do with it and how we use it as a tool for growth, because it is not a bad thing. It is not an evil thing. And the people who honor their contracts, our soulmates, are not evil either. So that's another aspect of the trauma. Once we get to a space where we understand that we've made these decisions and choices and agreements with people, then we have to take that person out of what we're physically seeing and honor their higher self. An example of that looks like this. Your mailman is always late with your mail, and you just don't understand why he does this every single day. And it's because y'all, agreed that he would teach you patience. And that's his point. That's literally the reason why he's here, is to teach you patience and anticipation. And when you're waiting for something, to do it with ease, with grace. That's just a very simple way to understand and stop seeing people in the way that we see them, where we think like, you're a hater, you don't want me to get my mail, you really just are such an evil person, you're doing this intentionally because you hate me, and really it's you asked me to do this and I was like, okay, that's no big deal, I'll do this for you so that you can learn. And then in the same time, what you're giving them is a lesson on how to be patient with impatient people. Like, you're both gaining something in your experience. You both agreed to play a part in each other's life. So that's only if you're gonna do your job, right? It's only if everybody in the situation agrees to honor their contracts. Now, what if someone does not agree to honor their contracts? Okay, so patience was not on the top of your list. It was not something that you were trying to learn. And it was not a contract that you made with the mailman. Your contract with them was peace, right? You just want to learn how to remain in peace and how to, really just be gracious or grateful that they come on time all the time. It was a lesson in gratitude. But instead, you're learning peace, or patience and anticipation. Is it a bad thing that you have those attributes of patience developed? No. Your higher self is still winning. So you're still learning something good, even when someone doesn't honor those contracts. It's just like in a marriage. Someone doesn't honor the contract, 2 people divorce. They both find much better partners. I mean, not in all situations is it going to feel like, this is better, or it could have been a lot easier, but we have to let go of our expectations of people honoring anything and just be grateful when they do, and take the lessons that come with someone not honoring their contract or their position as a blessing for someone else to, or a blessing for a life experience, which is why obedience is so imperative, because we are soulmates to other people too. And it's not just in a romantic way or a platonic way. It could be in a way where it seems insignificant in every way, but it requires our obedience. There's a reason we do things. We move in a certain way. why we listen, and why we're in tune with the universe, and we're in tune with the people within our lives. There have been many times where I was supposed to reach out to someone and I didn't, and the next day they died, or 2 days later they die. And it's like you have that feeling of like, man, if I would have reached out, would they have died? Or like, what would have happened then? Would things be different, or would they be exactly the same? If you do what you're supposed to do, it doesn't matter. You know, you never have to ask yourself those questions or wonder or even think. And that's what I believe both trauma and our soulmate contracts are imperative to keep. But just like with most contracts, they have an expiration date, which could be never, or it could be only for 3 days. Again, it requires us to be in tune and to listen, because those simple soulmate contracts can turn into very nasty, ugly karmic cycles if we try to force or manipulate or change what we've already agreed to. Like especially in relationships ending. If it was never supposed to be a romantic relationship and it ends, and people start getting evil and crazy and all this other stuff, and it's just like, look, this is not, you were told from day one not to do this. You were told to just be friends, and just go through life the way you normally agreed to. But, you know, people like to force their will, and our soulmate contracts teach us that we have made agreements, and let's just honor those and move on. Or let's just honor those and stay in them. You know, if it's a twin flame situation, just stay in it. You know, just find me already, and you know, let's just stay in it. And that's basically that's the purpose of our existence here. And again, all of this is from my perspective, my understanding of how it all relates and how it all intertwines, and why everything is necessary and everything is relevant. And it's good to have these understandings, because on the days where it's the hardest, you can go back to that. You know, I chose this. Why I chose this, why this was my experience, may not always be evident, but eventually, you know, it will be. I always look at it like this. I'm strong enough to go through this so that someone else doesn't have to. Or I'm strong enough to go through this because I chose it. And I was bestowed with this responsibility by my ancestors, by my family, because they felt that I was capable. And I knew, my higher self knew that I was capable of this. So if I am capable of this, then there's something in me that can withstand this. There's something in me that can make it through this experience, because there is a reason and a purpose. And sometimes that's the only hope or faith that you can hold on to make it through situations that don't always feel good. We're very much so led by our feelings at times. That's why sex can be so enjoyable, because it feels good. But what are the ramifications of it at times if it's not done with the right person? If it's not done at the right time, if it's not done within the sanctity of a union? Like, what can these things that feel good lead to that don't feel good? So our feelings really are just indicators of exterior response, of triggers, of possible trauma, headed your way, possible lessons. Anywho, all right, so our soul needs trauma to grow, and we have to make sure that we go through it and not get stuck. A long time ago, I was in a youth service when I was still in ministry, Christianity, and one of the words that was given to me was to not get stuck here and to go through it. At the time, the thought of going through when it felt like I was standing right at the front door of something, to me was just blasphemy. Like, how could you tell me to go through this? This hurts far too bad. But it stuck with me. And anytime I feel like, I'm at a place where I'm not gonna make it through this. I'm standing at the door, and I'm telling you, if you make me take a step, I'm going to literally jump off of that. And the understanding now is that on the other side, when you walk through the valley, it's really okay. But you got to keep walking, and it's that walking that is often very uncomfortable and unbearable. But if you go through it versus being stuck in it, could you imagine just starting to walk through something and then just sitting down like, I can't go any further. But if you just take 2 more steps, you're through it. That's often how our situations work, where it's just keep walking. Just keep walking through the situation, especially if suicide is something that, or depression is something that you deal with, or you fight with, or you battle with. It's usually tied to a dope AF purpose, So it's like if you just keep walking through it, it's gonna add another badge to your already amazingly badged up vest. But it's another tool, man, and something that we could definitely use going forward, even if it's not in this life experience, even if it's not in this day, next week. And maybe I can see so many situations or encounters I've had with people that I felt like I could die today and I would be fine, and after I'll meet someone and they're in that space where they feel like, I can't do this, and I can tell them like, oh yeah, I went through that, and then after that, this is what happened, and life got better, because you don't want to get stuck in the trauma. And we all have our agreements that we make, and if we just stay, obedient to those, if we just stay in this space of listening and being in tune versus forcing our agenda, will be good. What does that look like? Like, I'm going to give a quick example and then I'm be done. What does it look like to force your agenda? Forcing your agenda is reading books like How to Keep a Man, How to Get a Man, Hoe Tactics, Men Don't Like Women Like You, where you're essentially altering your nature to come off more appealing to somebody else. You're essentially manipulating somebody like you that does not like you, or manipulating men to want to be with you because you don't feel likable. That ain't honoring your contracts. You may need to be unlikable for this person to come across you and be like, oh yeah, I recognize you. Yeah, let's honor this contract. Yeah, let's do this. We chose to do this. That is forcing your will because you want this man or this woman to do what you want them to do. That's manipulation. I don't care if you want to talk about it or not, but it is, and it's pointless. Like, if we could just essentially all just be who we are in our authenticity, we can just, mind our business and really do what we're supposed to do here. And that includes go through trauma. That includes not being able to control someone, to get them to do what we want them to do because we feel that that's what it is. In the previous episode, I went in depth about our karmic cycles, and a lot of times we stay in those and we continue to go through them because we're not ready to let that experience go or that person go. But when we look at life based on the fact that everything requires a flow, a fluidity, and we can stop being stagnant and ultimately do what we came here for, which isn't always fun, but it is beneficial. And I really hope that this information did something for you, and that you continue to seek and search for whatever it is that you're seeking and searching for. And I thank you for taking time out to listen to me. talk and explain my perspective. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day and that it is full of light and love and peace. Have a wonderful day.